So I'm going to say a little bit about the exam question which we were set, which was, is the UK leading or lagging in research assessment? No prizes for suggesting on which side of that divide I'm going to come down. And then say a little bit about the future trajectory and the content of the consultation, which I know lots of people have been waiting for, and the wait will soon be over, I can assure you. So is the UK leading or lagging? Well, I think, I would argue that we are leading in a number of ways in the way we go about research assessment, not least because, as James has already alluded to in his opening remarks, we have a long history of doing research assessment in the UK, and we have had within that history of national research assessment processes a lot of reflection and evaluation of the processes, and I think we've tried, or my predecessors have tried, to very much learn from those evaluations and move forward. I think the features that I would highlight in terms of our system as being world leading is that we now have, within the context of the REF, a very nuanced definition of what we mean by quality. We've explored that through numerous exercises and codified it in the types of criteria that are used within the REF. And that actually does attempt and try to take a multidimensional view of research quality. And I think that's an important factor that we need to hold on to, and we need to push that. Related to that, we have continued to rely on peer review and expert judgment as a way of evaluating research. There has been and continues to be constant pressure to use alternative approaches based on metrics and data that are supposedly cheaper ways of doing the same thing. And I think all our analysis and the review that James led for us last year lead us to the conclusion that that is really deeply problematic, and that the role of experts in making judgments about research quality is paramount. Now, having said that, that's not to, I wouldn't want to sound as if I was suggesting that peer review is without problems and without faults and challenges. And I think one of the things we do have to do as we continue to evolve the system is to really interrogate that point and make sure that we aren't falling prey to biases and groupthink in the way that the peer review process is carried out. But I still think that is a central facet of the current system. The third area that I just want to mention around why I think we're world leading is around the inclusion of societal impact as an aspect of research quality within the exercise. So I think that's part of what I talked about a moment ago in terms of having a broad view of what quality research means, and to include within that ways of rewarding, recognising and identifying the research that really makes a difference in a very tangible way outside of the academy is really important. So I would argue that those three things make the way in which we do research assessment in the UK world leading, and obviously I'm interested in hearing from Gunnar as to whether that point of view is shared by someone looking in into the UK from the outside. James has already mentioned that the REF2014, an exercise that was deemed largely to be successful, and I think we forget for a moment, although I don't forget because it was something I was obviously concerned about. No one has challenged the outcomes of REF2014. They are broadly accepted to the sector, and they broadly give answers that people resonate with in terms of the relative performance of different units within disciplines. We have evaluated it extensively, and in the first half of this year, Lord Stern and his eminent panel took a really careful and detailed look at the processes with a really, a clean blank sheet of paper starting point, and having done that interrogation, have effectively come out to a position that is really about evolving the REF2014 rather than doing anything radically different. Having said all that, the Stern Review recommendations are in many ways within that framework quite radical, and I think that's going to be the focus of the debate in the UK in the coming months. We expect our consultation to be published any day now. It's been any day now for about a month, but it really is any day now, and I would imagine it'll be out in the early part of next week at the latest. There are some key features of that consultation that I think it's worth just dwelling on and thinking about, and maybe encouraging a bit of discussion and debate on. Lord Stern recommended that all research staff should be submitted rather than the current position where universities select which staff to be submitted. That raises some quite interesting challenges about how you identify all research staff. What does that mean? How do you allocate those staff to disciplinary areas? Is it for universities to continue to do that, or do we need to find some way of automating using data sources that we already have to allocate staff to disciplinary areas? Some really tricky questions in that. There's a strong push within Stern to break the linkage between individuals and their research outputs, and to make the whole exercise more focused on the institution and less on the individual. But within that, a number of challenges. So Stern recommends a variable number of research outputs per researcher, varying between 0 and 6. That has some interesting implications in terms of how many researchers work could represent an entire unit, even in an all-staff submitted scenario. And quite controversially, he also recommended that research output should no longer be portable when researchers move between institutions. Their institutions retain those outputs. And again, there are some interesting policy issues around that. It's a recommendation that was aimed at reducing what is deemed to be excessive researcher mobility around the REF deadline. There are some policy questions about whether it might be too strong a measure and may actually completely restrict researcher movement. And there are also, from my perspective, some major practical challenges in actually how you implement that non-portability requirement. There are also recommendations around moving more of the assessment to institutional level, and I think we were already thinking along some of these lines before the Stern review to look at things like research environment much more at an institutional level. But Stern also recommends looking at impact at an institutional level, or looking more at impact at an institutional level. And that also raises some quite interesting questions about how much at an institutional level. How do you decide which case studies should be looked at an institutional level? If those case studies are meant to be interdisciplinary, what does that mean for monotechnic institutions that only focus on a single disciplinary area? So lots of interesting practical questions to explore in the consultation. And the final area I just wanted to mention was the Stern recommendation around more inclusivity on impact. So actually broadening that, not necessarily broadening the definition of impact, which is already quite broad, but actually changing the relationship between impact and research outputs. And again, lots of interesting questions to explore there about how you evidence things like a researcher's esteem within the community that might be something that leads to impact. So I think the consultation is going to be an interesting time. As I say, it's hopefully out, not hopefully, will be out in the next few days. It'll be open for 14 weeks. We'll be running events that we'll have to discuss the consultation, and also webinars and online events as well to open up that debate. So I'm looking forward to interesting discussions this evening and interesting discussions for the next 3 months to come. Thank you.